Welcome, friends, one and all, to Fountain Street Church, a place where you are welcome wherever you are on this life's journey, just as you are. If you would hear these words that would call us to make a place called sanctuary, a place safe and whole and open to you and all that you bring with you this day. Hear these words from the Dhammapada. Never does hatred cease by hating in return. Only through love can hatred come to an end. Victory breeds hatred. The conquered dwell in sorrow and resentment. They who give up all thought of victory or defeat may be calm and live happily at peace. Let us overcome violence by gentleness. Let us overcome evil by good. Let us overcome the miserly by liberality. Let us overcome the liar by the truth. And indeed, it is the truth which we gather to hear and then to live out ourselves. Let us gather our hearts for worship.
Good morning. Please join me in the responsive reading. Love must be sincere. It is not self-seeking. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good.
Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth.
Be devoted to one another in love.
Love always trusts.
Honor one another above yourselves.
Love does not dishonor others.
Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spirit fervor.
Love always preserves.
Isn't it? Good morning. Waiting for John to do something else. I have a welcome printed in my folder right there. That would be beneficial if I had it in front of me. But first of all, I just want to say welcome and nice to see all of you. It's nice to see smiling faces, most of them anyway. Welcome to Fountain Street. If you've been a member here for a long time, welcome home. If you're brand new here today, welcome home. I hope that you find this place to be a place where you can craft your own spiritual journey, that you can inquire about things that you don't understand, that you don't have to believe everything that you hear. And it's part of what makes Fountain Street unique. I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the uniquenesses of Fountain Street. But I just wanted to let you know that I find this place a place of hope. And hope is, I think, a cool word. It's 4 letters. It's something I've used for years. HOPE, H-O-P-E, stands for high opportunity plus effort. So there's a huge opportunity here, and I want you to put forth an effort. I want you to enjoy today, and I want to welcome each and every one of you here. In the bulletin in the back, there's a few messages about what's going on. There is a little note in there about if you're a shopper, and I happen to know someone who's a shopper. So it's interesting what you shop for. It's always your passion. So I get mad at John for buying shoes, and he gets mad at me for buying shrubs. So we all have our own vices, but take advantage of some of the opportunities to give back. Take a look at the announcements. Anything else in there that you may have questions about? We do have a welcome center. Welcome here. You are home, whether it's your first or your 50th or your 500th time here. Thank you.
So few hands, so many notes. That's one of the things that always just astounds me about ringers. Thank you for that. We take time as a community to enter into one of the most ancient of all spiritual religious arts, which is the act of prayer, meditation, silence. However it is that you come to a space that allows you to fully arrive present before your life and the life that surrounds you. So I first just want to welcome you to literally just take a really serious breath this morning. Some of us don't actually get that very often, and this is a place which wants to offer that space. However it is, you can come to it. I was fortunate this last week to spend time with my national conference, which was a group of 3,000 churchy people all wandering around together. It provides many interesting moments. But one of the most profound for me was actually an act of prayer with 3,000 people in one room. And it's astonishing what the power of a people gathered in intentionally reflectional space can do. And I want to offer to you one of the many moments of that I experienced as something we might try together. It comes from the genius of Anne Lamott. Some of you may have read some of her. And she suggests many alternative visions for what one's meditative or prayer life might look like in a very modern, practical, dirt under the fingernails kind of way. And she suggests a threefold movement, which I want to offer to us this morning as we practice together. And I'll actually guide us through each of the three movements. So something like a guided meditation or prayer this morning. The three movements are this, and I heard one of them in our gathering here right after the bells finished. It's the word wow. So if you want to know what wow is, it's that thing that happened when they were done. But it begins with thank you or gratitude. And from thank you and gratitude, we move to help. Because I don't know anyone who doesn't need some help. And from help, we then remember how much wow there is in the world. So let's take time to fully take our seats. If it's helpful to you to take your most attentive seat, for some that means putting your feet on the floor, for others that means sitting up tall. But to be able to pay attention to the breath that gives you life. And if it's helpful to close your eyes, wonderful, but if not, it's certainly not a requirement. I welcome you to follow along this short threefold journey of thank you, help, and wow. Let us open our hearts, our minds, and relax our bodies into gratitude. Even if the only gratitude we can find this day is one of thank you for the breath which gives us life, for the life that we have been given. Let us name those gratitudes in the silence of our hearts as we breathe. And having made space within ourselves through an act of gratitude, won't you open yourself to help, to that simple request which begins, I need. Let us name in the breath that follows the help for which we or those across the world of which we know and love and have concern might need. And having made ourselves vulnerable to the help we need, let us enter into the wonder of the wow that is present among us. And if it is not present in our own lives, let us see it in the lives of others who might inspire us to the truth that life and life abundant is our birthright. Let us say wow to those things we have seen and heard and tasted and smelled and touched. And now let us gather ourselves from these places of gratitude and need and awe and return ourselves here and now to those all around us. And I welcome you to take a clue from a community that gathers in this space at 9:30s during our church year that spends a significant amount of time in a more conversational way. So I'm going to ask you to risk yourselves here now for a moment as we've concluded our time in meditation and prayer, to turn to somebody near you and just simply offer any comment that you might have about how you were just surprised. What surprised you about your gratitude or your need or the wow that is among us today? Let's take just 1 minute and do that. And before we do, I'm going to let you know that in 1 minute you really have to come back, because the hardest thing to do is to come back. So turn to someone near you and offer your sense of surprise. Well, it seems there is no lack of ability to be surprised. And that's one of the wonderful things I think about Fountain Street as a community, is that we are open to that kind of surprise, not only on Sundays, but in our lives in general. I hope you'll take some of that with you out into your day.
Good morning again. Too many jobs going on this morning. So this morning, I wanted to read for you the North American Apache Wedding Blessing. Now you will feel no rain, for each of you will be shelter to the other. Now you will feel no cold, for each of you will be warmth to the other. Now there is no more loneliness, for each of you will be companion to the other. Now you are two bodies, but there is one life before you. Go now to your dwelling place to enter into the days of your togetherness, and may your days be good and long upon the earth. Thank you.
Again. You notice no coat? Last week we were here, I was in shorts and flip-flops, so I thought I'd spare you that, but I would feel much more comfortable in a pair of shorts right now. Good morning. I want to know what love is. That's the subject of my message today, and some of you may remember the song, if you're as old as I am, which is as old as dirt. A song from the 1970s. It was a song from the group called Foreigner. We'll talk a lot about that song today. Music to me is something that speaks to my soul all the time. And I'll share some insight in that in a little bit. I want to do some thank yous before we begin. First of all, I want to thank Jason for your help today. I appreciate it. Marilyn for all of your music playing. The handbell choir, you guys rock. I love the handbells, one of my favorites. And John for reading. He couldn't wait to read. Begging is what I would say he did the moment he said, I agreed to speak today. He said, please, 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 can I please read? Because I enjoy nothing more than standing in front of people that I don't know. And then there were a whole lot of profanities after that. We won't go into that. So I'm glad he volunteered. Also, the Religious Services Committee, Carol, Heather, for all your help. I do appreciate it. You guys are brave to allow me to speak today because you have no clue what you're going to hear today. So cross your fingers. I hope you're ready. My name is Chip Wall. And you're probably thinking to yourself, who on earth has a name called Chip? It can't be real. It's not. It's a fake name. You see, my father insisted when I was born that I be called the same name as him, and I don't share that name. That is my legal name, but there is only one Carl. That is my father. When people call the house and ask for Carl, I know it's a telephone solicitor because that's how it's listed in the phone book, but nobody knows me as Carl. The name is very clever, or so I thought, until I found out how I actually got the name. My mother hated the name Junior, JR, or any affiliation with that. So she decided the moment I was born that she would call me Junior, Carl Jr., but she would never call me Carl, and she called me Chip. And that was real clever, I thought, until I found out what it was, and she said, well, I couldn't think of anything. And so we decided to call you Chip off the old block. So much for originality. I grew up in a typical working class family. I grew up in Wyoming in the very first years. And then later in life, I grew up in Granville, which for those of you that aren't familiar with the city of Grand Rapids, you know Granville is the hotbed for liberal and progressive ideas. Maybe not so much. Great place to grow up. It was safe, but it was all white. It was all Christian. And it was all not super forgiving or open to other ideas. From all outward appearances, our family looked pretty typical. We were what I used to say we looked like the Norman Rockwell painting. It was just a typical American family. I was the oldest, the brightest. Bless you. The most intelligent. 2 younger sisters, and pretty standard. But my life changed dramatically when I was a child. When I was about 6 years old, my sisters and I were left with a babysitter who, unfortunately for us, was a boy, an older teenager. And that was the start for me of a darker part of life. Now, understanding this was the 1960s, I was always taught as a child, don't take candy from strangers, don't get in a car with strangers. I thought that was all really good stuff, but I wasn't the smartest child on the planet Earth, and that's what I decided I would never do. No candy or car rides. Beyond that, everything else was okay. 1960s, remember, we didn't have Oprah, Sally Jassy, or Maury. We didn't know who the baby daddy was. So, nothing was spoken about, just car rides. And at 6 years old, I thought I had done something wrong. It was my fault. Something I must have started. I was told at that time, if I said anything, that my family would be taken away from me. And as a 5 and 6 year old, you believe that's what would happen because of this dark secret that we had. So as the story is told too many times, children being victims of parents or relatives, neighbors, or strangers. But we all had the same devastating results. The child left wondering if they deserved it, if they asked for it, and if they even had the option to live. I know it's really twisted, but that's the way I thought. I thought if I didn't tell, if I was a good boy, life would be okay. My life always seemed to be better when my family traveled. We traveled a lot as kids. We were lucky enough to have a summer home, so we'd go away for the weekend, we'd go away on vacations. And I loved it when we did that because I was safe. I knew that I wasn't being watched. Unfortunately, this person lived next door to us. And so I always felt like I was being watched somehow, that I could be hurt at any moment. And then my parents brought home the good news. We were moving from Wyoming, Michigan, to what I call the Dutch Mecca, Granville. I knew I'd be escaping this person. I was happy. Well, we moved, and that put an end to the abuse that I had had. I'd lived through it, thought my troubles were over. We'd move someplace else, life could start anew. So I know some of you right now are thinking, wait a minute. I could have slept in this morning. We could have been on the golf course this morning. And I'm listening to this guy talk about this. Are you kidding me? It'll get better, I promise. Well, life moved on. Nobody was watching over my shoulder. But there was this thing inside of me that I didn't understand. And for many years, I called it something wrong with me. I don't call it that anymore, but for a long time, I said, there's something wrong with me. I didn't quite know what it was. But I knew what my friends were talking about didn't impact me the very same way with some of the jokes that they told and some of the things that went on. I thought, I don't feel that same way. And I knew I had a secret inside, but I just couldn't share it with anyone. I had another big, dark secret. I was growing to understand that I had feelings for a man the way my friends had feelings for women. 2 strikes against me. I heard the words before, and you have too, fag and queer and all those lovely words that I heard as a child. And I remember using those words, thinking if I said it, nobody would know what my truth was. Well, it didn't take too long, and all of that laughing about it started to really weigh on my soul. My internal questions kept coming up. Was it my fault with the neighbor? Was it because of him that I felt this way, that I loved a man? What else was going to happen? Well, let me tell you, you guys know Granville because you laughed when I said it. Granville is not a real open community, so there were no words like homosexuality. Just lots of crude jokes. So to tell you, my teen years were a little frustrating. A complex or a complicated mix of emotions, frustrations, and conflict. It's a fact. But seriously, didn't I just describe all of your teenage years? Didn't we all feel the same way? Now, we all had different things to deal with, I understand, but we kind of felt the same way. I found myself, though, in my teen years starting to have something called serious bouts of depression. So, what do you do when you have depression and you don't want to speak about it? You hide it, like everything else that you've done in your life. So I started to turn to other things. Food was a comfort. I found alcohol to be a comfort. But I never found a relief from the depression that I was feeling. And it just was one more guilty thing that I was hiding, one more secret. Adding to the list of reasons that I wasn't a good person, not worthy of love, I felt shamed, and I felt like I was a sad soul. I did my best to blend in with the crowd. I was involved with school. I played football. I used to do morning announcements through school. I thought that was a lot of fun. Every morning, I came up with a list of characters. I remember one of my characters was called a Hip Chip. I used to do a really bad Wolfman Jack impression. So I'd start morning announcements with Hip Chip, and it was really bad. But I had notoriety from it. People say, who is the guy doing the announcement? He is amazing. I go, I don't know. I bet he's good looking too. So subsequently, I was voted the class clown when I graduated high school. Go figure. Which is how I always felt. I felt like a clown. I felt like there was the face that everybody saw that was happy, that was smiling, that was joyful and carefree. But yet there was that deep, dark secret behind the makeup, if you will, of a clown. High school brought a lot of fun, some tough times as well. Having found myself in a spot of despair, I felt extremely deep and dark in depression. And that was the very first time that I thought of an answer, which was suicide. I decided that if I died, the pain would go away. I didn't have a strong faith at the time. And I just thought, I'll just disappear. That'll be it. There'll be no more pain. I felt lucky that my first attempt, I found myself asleep for almost 24 hours. And luckily, I love my parents, but they're not always real responsive to what was going on in their children's lives. So my parents thought I had the flu. And that's why I slept for 24 hours. But that was just one more secret to put in that list. So I got through school, and I knew that I had to live somebody else's dream. I knew that I couldn't live my own life. So I knew I had to get married, and then I had to start a family. And then all this guilt would go away. And I would find the love that I wanted, the love that I needed. And I wanted it, and I craved it. So I found myself in a very loveless marriage with deeper depression, and that's all that resulted from that union. But there was a bright spot in that union. 2 of them, in fact. 2 beautiful boys. We adopted 2 boys, one from Guatemala and one from Brazil, and he'll shoot me if I tell you that he's sitting in the front row right now. Our oldest son, Andrew. Those were the bright spots, the brightest spot of my life. They got me through a whole lot of tough times, and I call them true gifts of joy. But living in this loveless marriage with a lifetime of guilt was driving me into depression that I just didn't know what to do with. And so at one point, I decided that my ex-wife and my children would be better without a father with all the shame and the guilt that I was harboring. So I decided it'd be best to give them a clean slate. She'd find somebody else. He'd be smarter, have more money, whatever it would be. Well, call it luck, call it karma, fate, but my ex-wife walked in at the time I had decided to end my life. So I was forced. I was forced to do something, to be honest, to start to deal with some of those issues from my past, and to see how I could feel better and how I could start to experience love. So I spent many years getting good, solid help. My ex-wife knew of my feelings. She knew that I was gay. But she was more than happy to stay with me as long as we had the house and the place on the lake and had nice cars. All the trappings of what I call unsuccessful success. I still was unhappy, knowing in my soul that I wanted to be loved, that I needed love. And I felt that that type of love I got from my boys. They have always shown me unconditional love. Which then brought me to a point where suicide would never be a part of my vocabulary ever again. I was very active in our church, United Methodist Church. I'm not here to slam anyone. But I was looking for that love, and I found a church home that I felt pretty comfortable in. It was a safe place. I felt love. I did lots of work there. I worked on several committees. I had a great time. And then we had a brand new campaign. I'll never forget it. It was called Open Doors, Open Arms. Unless, of course, you were gay, black, Hispanic, or anything else other than white, straight, heterosexual. I thought it was a catchy title, but it really didn't do well for me. I was working on this campaign, and one of the older gentlemen who I had worked with, and I wrote it down because I didn't want to forget exactly what he said. He said, I, as an older member of this church, want to make sure we open our doors, but I want to make sure that we don't allow anyone who doesn't speak English. Or any of those other people. Well, I fit other in many categories. A gay man, children of color, we hit it, all of them. I'm not slamming the United Methodist Church. I have a great love for it. I am slamming this idiot. Sorry, sometimes I speak pretty frank. And I changed that because I had another word. He had a hole in his head, that's for sure. I was shocked at the racism that I found there. A place where I felt I was accepted. We were taught every week, loving, accepting, everybody's to be welcomed. I felt so hurt. Here I am, a gay man, biracial son, a Hispanic son. None of us are welcome here. I knew I was worthy of love, and I needed it. And the thing that I loved about our church was that our minister always preached about the love that we had to share with each other. Well, my job, by the way, for those of you that don't know, I work as an independent contractor, and I do sales training, and that's more my comfort zone. This isn't my comfort zone today, but my comfort zone is sales training, motivational speaking. And I travel for a multi-level, I won't name them, a multi-level company based out of Grand Rapids, which is very conservative, very right-wing. And I found myself always towing the company line, living with a secret. Another secret. But I knew that the entire time I was working, I could never reveal the real Chip, the real true person who I am. And there is something that's really uplifting when you can be honest with who you are, what you believe. So I travel all around the country. I do training. I found myself on the road a lot. And I spoke a lot at night and on weekends doing large rallies. I'm much more comfortable not in this size room. I'm much more comfortable with 20,000 people. That's what I do. That's much more comfortable because I don't see any of your faces nor any of your eyes. So I can pretend that all of you are out there going, this man is amazing. Instead of going, when is he going to wrap this up? So I found myself in a lot of hotel rooms during the day, and I'm not a huge TV fan, and there was one person who I'm never a real big fan of, but I'll name her. Her name's Oprah. And I happened to do some channel surfing, and Oprah was on. And there was a girl there who I didn't know. I kind of knew who she was. She's part of the Judds singing family, mother and niece. daughter, sorry, John. He knows music, I don't. Wynonna is her name. And she was talking about some struggles that she had, and she was talking on Oprah, and she was just pouring her heart out, and I thought, wow, how refreshing. And I was hearing the struggles, and her struggles sounded very familiar to me. And she sang a song, and it was called I Want to Know What Love Is. Well, it was the combination of not only that story, but also the song that brought me to tears. All alone, in a hotel room in Vancouver, British Columbia, at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, like a big old buffoon, there I sat in a puddle of tears listening to this song. I want to know what love is. Now, we have the music, and I hope that it sounds better than it did in rehearsal earlier. And this is Wynonna singing, I want to know what love is. And I just want you to, music sings to me and speaks to my soul. I just want you to listen to this. If you want to, you can close your eyes and just listen to the words that she's singing in this song. And then I press the button with the arrow. Let's hope this works.
I gotta take a little time to think things over. I better read between the lines in case I need it when I'm older. Mountain I must climb feels like the world's upon my shoulder. Through the clouds I see love shine. It keeps me warm as life grows colder. In my life there's been heartache and pain. I don't know if I can face it again. I can't stop now. I've traveled so far to change this lonely life. I wanna know what love is. I want you to show me. I wanna feel what love is. I know you can show me. I'm gonna take a little time to look around me. I've got nowhere left to hide. It looks like love has finally found me. In my life, there's been heartache and pain. I don't know if I can face it again. I can't stop now. I've traveled so far to change this lonely life. I wanna know what love is. I want you to show me. I wanna feel what love is. I know you can show me. I wanna know what love is. Love that you feel inside. I want you to show me. Show me love is real. I wanna feel what love is. I wanna feel. I wanna feel. I know you can show me.
This mountain I must climb feels like the world is on my shoulders. Through the clouds I see the light. keep me warm as life grows colder. One thing that I learned through my experiences is that we need to treat each and every one of us that we meet with courtesy, with dignity, and respect. In fact, it's a joke that I've used for about 100 years. I apologize if you've ever heard it before, but it's one of my favorites. A little boy named Tommy was given a gift of a train. And Tommy was playing with his train in the living room, and his mother overheard him do something like this. Woo! Right! All you sniveling idiots, get your keisters off my train right now. Get off. The mother was horrified. She called Tommy into the kitchen. Sit down, young man, we need to talk. Tommy said, about what? She said, about the way you just spoke to the passengers on your train. He said, what was wrong with it? She says, Tommy, I need to teach you that if you have a customer and if you own a business, you need to treat people with courtesy, with dignity, and with respect. Tommy said, fine. She said, in fact, Tommy, everybody you meet in this life needs to be treated with courtesy, with dignity, and respect. He said, fine, I'll do it from now on. She said, you know what, this is such an important lesson. I want you to go upstairs, take a 1-hour time out. Think about it. Tommy went upstairs, he sat up there for an hour and thought about it. He came back down, he says, Mommy, I've learned my lesson. She said, what have you learned, honey? Well, I've learned all about the courtesy and dignity and respect. I'm going to do it from now on. She said, great. Then Tommy said, can I play with my train? She said, absolutely. Now, you know, if you're a parent, this is when you really pay attention to your children. And this is what Mommy overheard. On behalf of everyone here at Tommy's Railroad, we'd like to thank you for the opportunity of serving you today. We know that you have a choice in railroads, and we appreciate your business. As you exit the train today, use caution when opening the overhead bins, as items tend to shift in transport. Watch your step as you're getting off the train. Have a fantastic day today in this city or wherever your final destination may take you. And by the way, if any of you are upset about the 1-hour delay, see the old grouch in the kitchen. Lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. My point today is really to open yourself up for possibilities. Things do happen. My life changed dramatically 14 years ago in February. Now, there are two versions of this story, and I'm going to tell you this one is the best. John has his own version. He says it's the right one. It's not as good as mine. I was flying from Minneapolis to Tucson to speak for my job. And I had the night off when I was flying in from Minneapolis. And I was comfortably seated in my first class seat with my book and my headset. Now, there are rules about first class flying. If you haven't flown first class, let me tell you what they are. You sit down, you get your book out, you put your headset on, you don't speak to anyone. When you're landing the plane, you turn to the person next to you and say, oh, so you're here for work or pleasure, because you don't want to engage them in a conversation. Lord help you if it's 3 hours. Way too much talking. So I was comfortably seated in my seat, but there was an open seat next to me. And just as they were about to close the doors, the flight attendant went in the back and got this guy, brought him up front. I rolled my eyes, groaned, because now I had to get up, let him in, and talk about a chatty Cathy. So I said to myself, oh yeah, here comes a coach passenger. He doesn't know the rules. Now, in his defense, he's flown in first class before, but I thought, here we go. We talked from Minneapolis to Tucson, 2-3 hours, whatever it was. Had a great time, and then I asked him as we were landing, do you know of a good Chinese restaurant? I felt like Chinese food that night, and he recommended one for me, and that was the extent of it. And I told him where I was staying, that was the extent of it, and then we went off to baggage claim. Picked up my bags, and he came over and he said, would you like me to drop you off at your hotel? And I said, no, you don't have to do that. And he said, well, I'm driving right past it. It's on my way home. I thought, well, I'm cheap. Then I don't have to get a taxi. Sure, I'll take a ride home. So he gave me a ride home. I should have remembered what my parents told me. Never get me caught. On the way there, he said, you know, I have the night off. I have nothing going on. If you'd like, I can pick you up and take you to this restaurant I was telling you about. I said, sure, why not? The rest is history. Things changed. So we spent the next year, him in Tucson, me in Grand Rapids, and it was a back and forth kind of thing, but we never went more than 2 weeks without seeing each other. I would speak someplace, he would fly there, I would visit him, he would visit me. It was a lot of fun, But after he and I were formulating what we wanted to do with the rest of our life, I said, you know what? I have to let my family know my truth. Nobody in my family knew my truth, or so I thought. So I decided I would tell my father. My father is a good man, hardworking, Republican, NRA member. He scares me because he does have guns. I decided I needed to tell him I was gay. Now, the best way to do it was the way I did it. That's 2 bottles of wine, then deep conversation. I told him, Dad, I'm gay. Fearing that he would tell me to leave, which is a strong possibility. He put his head down and he cried. And he said, I don't want that for you. And I said, Dad, I don't want it for myself, but it's my truth. And he said, okay. I said, what do you mean, okay? You gonna shoot me now, or what's the story? Run? He said, Chip, I loved you yesterday. Why would I quit loving you today, no matter what? So then I cried, like a baby. So I told my dad, and I decided my mother needed to know. Now, my parents were divorced 20 years at this time. They hated each other, and that's putting it mildly. So I flew to Florida to tell my mother. I sat down with my Democratic, liberal, progressive mother, told her I was gay. She cried. She said, I wouldn't want that for you, but if that's your truth, that's your truth. I said, it is. And I said, so? And she said, so what? I loved you yesterday. Why would I quit loving you today? Same exact words my father said, and they hadn't been together for 20 plus years. My children, of course, I had to do a deeper dive with them. I had to put them in therapy because I didn't want to traumatize them. So we went through therapy, and then one day I decided now was the time with the therapist that I need to tell the children my truth. So they came in to see their therapist that they were working with, and I was sitting in there, and the kids looked at me like, what are you doing here? And the therapist said, Drew's smiling because he remembers it, you little snot. The therapist was sitting there, and I was there, and Drew walked in, and he's like, what? Dad's here. And the therapist said, now boys, I want you to sit down. Your father has something that he needs to tell you. Drew goes, we already know. Months and months of therapy to get to this point. He said, let your father speak. I spoke for 45 minutes, crying like a 4-year-old, 3 boxes of Kleenex, telling them everything I could. Got done with it, and they both went, oh, we already knew. We guessed. Snots. I was feeling what love was. My parents loved me, my children loved me, and I found somebody else who loved me. I felt so good after that point in time. John and I are married legally, which is really cool to say out loud in today's world because I never thought that would ever happen, ever. Marriage is easy, it's simple, there's never any bumps in the road. It's a true blessing and pleasure all the way. I'd heard a story that really summed it up for me. A couple had been married 60 years, and the lady was on her deathbed. She was laying in bed, and she said to her husband, honey, I have something I need to talk to you about before I pass. And he said, what is it, dear? And she said, go in the closet. On the top shelf, there's a box. So he got the box out, and he brought it down next to the bed, and he said, what is this? And she said, open it up. There was a crochet doll in the box with $95,000 in cash. Whoa. What in the world is this? She said, well, honey, I knew my mother gave me the best advice. The day we got married, she said, if I ever felt angry at you, not to argue with you. You know where it's going, don't you? Not to fight with you, but to crochet a doll. The man was so touched. A teardrop fell down his face, his cheek. He said, in 60 years of marriage, you've only been upset with me one time. She said, well, maybe a few more. He said, I get the doll. What's the $95,000 in cash? She said, that's from all the dolls I've sold before. It's tough work. In one of my very, very dramatic, and I have to have them periodically, dramatic moments, I was saying to the kids as they were flying away, I said, plane crash, I could be gone at any minute. What are you going to do about your father? I want them to pour their love out to me and tell me how. And Drew, again, this one, just smiled and said, don't worry, Dad, we have John as a backup. I'm happy that I have a family, but I've also found a family here. And I'm thankful for that family. Many of you I know, some of you from the governing board that I've just started working on, some of you I've known a while. Betsy Tinkham, Betsy and Dan. We used to do the white elephants, remember, years ago, and you would bid on different things. And she had put out her house for sale, lunch at her house. It was the first time my mother and John's mother met. They became best friends at that meeting. Had a wonderful day, good memory. Don and Bunny Johnson, good friends of ours. We had a dinner at their house. I think it was a 7-course meal or 70 bottles of wine, something like that. It was a wine-drenched evening. I thoroughly enjoyed it. We got to know them. We brought my mother and her partner of 30 years, Ken. They were beer drinkers, but at the Johnsons they served wine. My mom drank the wine. I knew we were running into problems. They are all golfers, and my mother saw a hole-in-one plaque, or 2 of them, I think, on your wall. Bunny had gotten a hole-in-one, and when my mother said, "Hey, Don, where's your hole-in-one?" I looked at John, "Houston, we have a problem. Something's wrong with Mom." She high-fived Bunny on her hole-in-one. I went, "Oh, Lord, we do have a problem." I've never seen my mother high-five anyone. Halfway through dinner, a lovely evening we spent with them. Halfway through dinner, she hadn't even finished her plate. She stood up and said, "We got to go now." A great memory. A great memory. We've actually gone wine tasting with them in California since. Lots of friends here. And we continue to make them, new friends. I hope that you're finding that love in this place as well. I want you to open up your heart. There's so many good people here. I have no idea where I was, but we're just going to pick, I'll stab right here. John Now Ushers. How do you like that? That's a segue. This is a place that we found to be home. I have a Christian background. John is a recovering Catholic. He's agnostic at the best. There are weeks we leave church on a Sunday, and I say to John, "I almost cried through the entire service." John goes, "You're kidding me. That was the most boring thing I've ever heard in my entire life." And then there are weeks I walk away going, "Didn't mean anything to me." He goes, "Oh my gosh, that was so good." You will find something for everyone here. We've been working on a strategic plan with the governing board, celebrating 150 years. We're looking for another 150 years, and I have talked way too long, so I'm going to skip the next 14 pages I had prepared. I'm teasing. To wrap things up, though, real quickly, I spent a really good, long part of my life looking for love, wanting to know what love is, but it seems to be all around us. Oftentimes, you don't even feel it, but there is love around you. In family, in a community, in friends, we need to open ourselves to it. I'm personally very happy that I now know what love is. I give thanks for it every day because it does help me to climb those mountains that we must climb.